Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Indie Game Dev Report. This is a podcast about networking and progress in the indie game dev community. And I'm going to be interviewing a lot of devs and finding people in the community that are really interesting and seeing what they're up to, learn about any types of tips and tricks that they might have found or any solutions to any problems they might be working on. And then the plan is to do progress reports with these people as the podcast progresses. And I'd like to introduce the first guest, but first I have to apologize for the quality of my voice on the recording. I was too close to the microphone when we recorded the interview, and I'd hate to ask him to do it over again, so you'll just have to take my apology, and it's very unfortunate, and next time I will do better. But it's really not too bad, and I've doctored it as best as I can, and so without further ado, I'd like to present this interview with Encalibro making Codename Malo. Okay, so I'm going to introduce my first guest on the first podcast of this new series, and his name is Encalibro on Twitter, but we just found out that recently his name is actually Derek Brown, and he's making Codename Malo. And I'd like to ask you more about what you're working on and how you got there and your background a bit.
Sounds awesome.
So go for it.
So I've played video games my whole life. I was born in the mid-'80s and, had basically most systems from the NES onwards and logged a lot of hours. So I've always been interested in gaming and when I was a little older, interested in game design as well. I dabbled a little bit in QBasic and Visual Basic once upon a time. I was pretty young at the time, never really got too far with it. I made a little Pong remake. I modified a few existing QBasic games, but it wasn't until about 6 years ago that I really started to take a bigger run at it. And out of school and working and didn't have all the homework side of things to worry about. So I remember Googling what's an easy programming language to learn. And Python made most of the list, so I tinkered with that for a little while, and once I felt comfortable, the next search was how do you make games in Python, and Pygame came up, so I just started playing around, and I had a few small projects that just were me messing around, seeing how games might be made, and about a year and a half ago, I started making Codename Malo, and it really, initially, I never intended to do anything with it. It was just a fun project to play with family and friends, and I just kept adding layers to it, and at a certain point, I decided it might be neat to try and polish it to the point where it could be set free into the real world.
Okay, and that brings us to Codename Malo, right?
Yeah.
So Codename Malo, if you're living under a rock, is a ninja simulator where you wear like a marshmallow kind of suit, right?
Yeah.
Am I screwing that up?
No, you've nailed it.
It's a little bit strange, but it plays wonderfully, right?
Yeah, the game started as a homage to DOS called Classic Marshmallow Duel, and that game came out in 1993. And the general premise is that you'd run around this single screen level made up of randomly laid out platforms, and there was weapons that you could use to vanquish your opponent, or you could just run into them and kind of knock them into this white bubbling fluid at the bottom. And a lot of the stuff in my game, I kind of put it in to be a nod to that original game. So there weren't marshmallows in the original Marshmallow Duel, but I thought it would be funny to put suits on them, because I always thought it was weird that in the original game you couldn't use your arms for anything. So,
that is a nice thing to point out. Like, I mean, very observant there, right? You have arms, but you can't use them, And,
Yeah.
and this was a shareware game, correct? Right? Shareware.
Yeah, so this was a most people that I've spoken with that have played Marshmallow Duel, they got it on a little shareware CD-ROM that had 1,000 free arcade games, and I think the disc had Doom and maybe Lemmings and a lot of games that nobody has ever played, and then Marshmallow Duel was on there too, and at one point it had a pretty neat little cult following, and you'd sit there. Both there'd be a 2-player game, and you'd both be sitting over one keyboard trying to control your little guy. And like I said, I mean that's where I've got 2 brothers, and we used to play a lot of Marshmallow Duel once upon a time. And I just thought it'd be fun to have a version where there could be 4 players, so that we could all play at the same time. And decided to do my own sprite work for it, and just kind of grew from there.
Right. And yeah, you mentioned you do your own artwork, and it's really, really beautifully done artwork, and it looks like you've been doing it for years, but it sounds like that's not the case here.
Yeah, I've been, like I said, I've making games for 6 years, I guess, if you want to say, but the first games that I put together, they were never meant to be anything more than prototypes. The artwork was pretty minimally worked out. So it's just been the last year and a half that I've really made an effort to try and pick up pixel art, and it doesn't come easy to me. It's definitely this whole thing, the side of it that I've spent the most time on, and I like to think that the game's kind of developing its own style, but there's always more to learn.
Now, I have never used Pygame. Does that have its own internal art design thing going on?
Pygame is basically a wrapper around the SDL media library. So it gives you access to like gamepads and the monitor, and they have some built-in stuff. Basically, everything in Pygame, you're working with sprites. So, I mean, you have to make all your own art and kind of slide it into their little sprite image holder.
So they have no sprite editor built into the engine?
They don't, no.
So what sprite editor are you using?
Yeah, that's a hot button issue. I know how to use GIMP.
That's correct.
Yeah, everything that I've been using for Codename Mallow has been done in GIMP. I see everyone else doing amazing things with. I think it's pronounced Aseprite.
I think it's Aseprite, but yeah, I mean that's another hot.
Yeah, I see we're doing amazing things with that. It's like high on my to-do list to go and learn how to use that thing, because it looks like it's got a lot of built-in functionality that would make life easier.
Nice.
But right now, I know how to use GIMP, and
hey, whatever works, right? Cool. So we've talked about how you got to CodeMallow, and did we talk about other jobs outside of game development?
Right. I don't think so. I'm a chiropractor by trade, so went through the whole school thing, and I really think there's lots of different careers that I might have been happy in. We talk about game design and stuff like that, but school pulled me in the direction of healthcare, and so went that route, and I've been in practice for just shy of 10 years now.
Okay. That's awesome. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Nice work. Okay, so what other kind of hobbies do you have outside of education and game development and playing games?
Yeah, I live in the west coast of Canada, so grew up playing ice hockey as many Canadians do. So still play out a little bit, play ball hockey a little bit. Lots of wonderful outdoor recreation opportunities here on Vancouver Island. So, walks and hikes with the family and stuff. But honestly, I mean, these days with wife and 2 young kids, my free time is mostly spending time with them, which is awesome. And then work, and most of the Codename Mallow stuff happens after everyone goes to bed.
Okay. And how about like books and movies and stuff like that? Any favorites or anything?
I do enjoy to read. The last big series I worked through was the Game of Thrones series, or the Song of Ice and Fire series.
Sure.
But it is a little bit of even. I spoke earlier about how I love video games, and I feel like trying to juggle all of life's things. A lot of my other hobbies have taken a back seat to the game design stuff right now. I've refused to let myself buy a Nintendo Switch, even though there's, quite a few games in there that I think I'd really like to play, just because I know it would totally derail my development efforts.
That is commendable, but it's also a great source of reference material as well. You might want to use that excuse at some point. Okay. Yeah. Great answers. Awesome. Let's see. And where do you find inspiration, like for like creative ideas and new ideas and stuff like that?
For Codename Mallow specifically?
In general, or for Codename Mallow, however you'd like to answer.
Yeah, lately, most of my gaming time is spent, doing. Restart that one. So I mean, for Codename Mallow, I mentioned earlier that the Marshmallow Duel DOS game from Once Upon a Time inspired a lot of that.
Sure.
I've always loved couch multiplayer games, like always. Nothing better than sitting down with a close friend or some family and kind of taking each other on and egging each other on. So I mean, there's a lot of games that I've kind of, even since programming, I've gone back and kind of looked at how they did certain things and really tried to think about why the model works. GoldenEye for Nintendo 64 comes to mind.
It's a great example. I agree completely.
Yeah, and more recently, Towerfall and Towerfall Ascension.
I've heard a lot about these. I haven't played them myself, but I should.
And that one, everywhere you look, it gets just rave reviews for its versus multiplayer, and I don't disagree. Like, it's phenomenal there, but it also has a really, really, really good co-op mode where you work through kind of waves of enemies, and there's boss battles, and there's DLC content for that too. That's a great game. And then Duck Game. When I got out of school, after having spent so long just poring over books and not having time to do as much gaming as I'd like, on my bucket list, I wanted to build a mid-range gaming PC. So I did, and it's got the power to run whatever it needs to run. And I look at my Steam hours played, and Duck Game of all games has dominated my time. And it's just funny that I when I built this computer to mostly play 2D versus multiplayer games. But when I think of Duck Game in particular, I feel like it nailed the simplicity. Like it distilled versus multiplayer games into its simplest form on what makes it fun. It doesn't waste time doing what it doesn't need to do.
Wow.
You just spawn. There's just the right amount of randomness there, just the right amount of skill.
It sounds like really great reference material that somehow I missed because I'm completely unfamiliar.
Oh man! Well, you mentioned the Switch. I own Duck Game on for the PC, but they did just port it to the Switch, I think.
I might have to take a look at that, or at least wait for a sale. Or definitely check it out on YouTube to see what you're talking about, because it sounds like it'd be super influential for anyone doing like multiplayer versus type stuff.
For sure.
Cool. Yeah, so let's see here. I've got a few questions written down. Now, you're a part of the indie dev world order, so to speak, I would say. Is that correct to say that you're part of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a really great networking group. If anyone's unfamiliar, on Twitter and Discord. I think it just started as like a follow Friday kind of thing, and everyone was just following each other and tagging Calibro, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that all started, but now it's like an ongoing joke too.
It's great. So now you're like one of the figureheads almost. It seems like, as far as like who everyone is following. So I think that's really great for your game and great for what you're doing and stuff. But you obviously see a little bit more into what everyone's doing because you have all of these networks now. So from what you see, what would you say looks like the people are having the most trouble with in game development as far as what you're seeing online?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a tough question. For me, literally no background in game development, and a lot of this for me has been a learning experience, even in using social media, because traditionally I'm not big on social media.
Okay.
And when I started the whole Twitter thing, the plan was just to, let the world know about my game, and seemed like a bit of a selfish approach looking back. And I was totally blown away by how many indie developers were on Twitter and were kind of showing their stuff off and helping each other out with feedback on how to improve things. And the question being, what's the hardest thing?
What you see the most, maybe, or what you see people struggling with, kind of thing.
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that from a game development standpoint, but
sure you are.
I would say most people would argue that just getting the word out about your game and marketing is
I think you're right on. I think you're right on with that answer. That's exactly what I see too. Visibility is probably the number one thing, and it's just super difficult unless you've got something that everyone already loves or people already love what you do before you make it. Then it's very difficult.
For sure. And for me, that's where the Indie Dev World Order has been awesome, because it's just such a great group of people that everyone's willing to help each other out, share knowledge, and not having any experience in game development, there's been quite a number of members that have really been willing to help me out and give me some advice on whole whack of issues. That part's been awesome. And even from a visibility standpoint, the games that have started Kickstarter campaigns since we've had the Indie Dev World Order or have been released, it's just a big network of people that are willing to help you get the word out about your game. So it's been pretty fun to be a part of.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it makes networking far more accessible for people who might not be ready for that. And a lot of developers, I feel like, are more introverted just to begin with,
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are either programmers or artists or a little bit of both. And those types of people tend to spend a lot of time in front of the computer.
For sure.
So you might be good at communicating with words, but reaching out is a lot easier when you have a group of people that are just ready to, take you in and give you some feedback. All right, so that's really great. Everyone should definitely check out the Indie Dev World Order if they haven't. Discord group is linked on their Twitter, and it's really easy to find. Use the hashtag for sure. It helps you get noticed by us, and we'd like to promote ourselves. So everyone that's part of it is just part of it if they want to be, right? There's no rules in that, so that's pretty cool. Let's see here. I got more questions. Now, do you have a favorite indie developer or game, or maybe like a team or a publisher or anything like that currently you're looking at, or you involve yourself with the news of?
So are you talking about like an indie game that's my favorite game?
Perhaps, or maybe your favorite developer or something like that. Something a little bit current that's indie. Maybe you got your eyes on in the future.
Yeah.
But you're saying you don't play a lot of games, so I mean, it makes sense that you don't have an answer right offhand.
I already mentioned my two biggest inspirations, and
Sure.
this Towerfall and Duck Game, and I haven't played Celeste, which was the more recent game.
Is that on the backlog?
It's one that near the top of the backlog, and that one in particular, the pixel art's so good in it, like so good in Celeste. So
yeah, it looks amazing. I haven't actually played it either, but I've seen a lot about it. I hear it's very difficult, and I'm a little bit intimidated.
But seeing what those guys have been able to accomplish over there, just with the how fun the game is, but also the level of polish in the style and the art, I look up to them for sure. I think they recently, because it was Matt Makes Games when it was Towerfall, but studio name. It's eluding me right now, though.
I can't remember either. It's somewhat recent change, right? That's okay. If someone wants to find out, they can look it up really quickly. Anyways, how do you feel about arcade gaming and retro gaming and the rise of pixel art coming back and that type of stuff?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
You're a fan.
Grew up, most of us think most fondly of the games from our childhood, and I was Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Those were the ones that started all for me. So
now,
there's certainly not.
Are you a collector today?
I'm not. I have a few people that have been trying to get me into it, and I've been resistant.
I feel the same. I had a nice collection, and it got thrown away.
I do have an emulator set up to play some of the games that I had when I was a kid. It's not quite the same. But
no, I love the emulators, but you're right. It's not quite the same. It's a little bit different.
For me, it's not. The collecting itself doesn't have the same appeal as like actually going to play the games, and I have a hard time trying to balance keeping everything in mint condition or best condition. And
sure,
me, I just want to break it out and play it with my kids.
Right.
And, anytime I try to get my 6-year-old to play kind of older games with me, it pretty quickly turns into, Dad, can't we just play the Lego games?
Right.
She likes the new 3D stuff. So
no, I mean it's made for kids. Where that stuff back in the day was made for kind of anyone who had a video game system, right?
Totally.
Yeah, and obviously you probably don't get out much to the arcades. Are there arcades in your area, or you gotta go a little bit further to get to the arcade?
I mean, in town, not really anymore. We're in Nanaimo, Vancouver Island, and in Vancouver there's some arcades. But we don't get over that often.
I can see that.
3 VR arcades that have popped up in town, but
that's very nice.
I haven't gotten into that at all.
Well, that's interesting to hear. How are you? That's an interesting tangent to jump onto. How are your feelings towards VR? Have you tried it yet, or anything like that?
I have a few VR experiences at things like Science World, or there's a Game of Thrones exhibit that was going around came to Vancouver, and so I have minimal VR experience. I think it's awesome.
Okay.
I think that by the time it's the price has come down to the point where it basically is just included with systems. It's
right,
huge.
Right. It's getting cheaper for sure.
I'm excited about it. I think everything's about immersion. So that's just the next natural jump for video games, I think.
Oh, I agree.
Interesting. Talk about like retro era to see if you could bring pixelated graphics and VR stuff together. Be neat to see.
Sure. I mean, there's a VR version of Minecraft that's pretty interesting, and that's kind of along those lines. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things going on with VR. It is very interesting. One of the things I liked the most about it was how easy it was to integrate Unity with it. I mean, it was a learning curve, but it was something that I could learn, and it wasn't too difficult to just like make a VR scene.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely easier than I thought it would be. Yeah, I mean, of course, selling a VR game is much more difficult than making a VR scene in Unity. They're two completely different things. Right. Okay. So you're a fan of that, the pixel art and the arcades and the retro games. How do you feel about esports? Like electronic sports?
So I I think they're great.
Okay.
I haven't spent a lot of time dabbling in it myself,
Uh-huh.
but I talk a lot of with friends and family about me personally. I have a hard time getting into online gaming these days,
Sure.
and that's partly a time thing. Just again with the family and stuff, having a game that I could pause
Right.
and go and deal with family stuff, then come back to.
Absolutely.
Just like it fits into my timetable better. But I think that the rise of esports has been awesome, and it's just the more eyes on gaming, I think, is great.
Right on. Yeah, no, I'm in an agreement there. And speed running. Do you ever watch speed running videos on YouTube or anything like that?
I occasionally, I'll be running around the internet and something in my little sidebar will talk about someone beating a game that I used to play in 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
I've watched a few, but I haven't really gotten into it or spent a lot of time.
Okay. Yeah. No, they're really interesting. I love the ones where they exploit glitches and little things like that.
Super fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorites, I think, growing up was Link's Awakening for Game Boy. Had this really great exploit.
Oh,
I don't know if you're familiar. You could hit I think it was the select button in between, like the map segments, and it would warp you to the other side. And if you did that in a cool spot where it was like horizontal gameplay or something like that, it would still have the same effect, but it would just completely glitch out the whole game, and it was so
Crazy.
much fun.
that game, I didn't know that though.
Oh yeah, no, that was the best part. I think they fixed it when they remade it, and then obviously when they made the new one, there's no glitch. But yeah, the original cartridge had this awesome glitch. It was probably my favorite part of video games, I would say. I played it for like a whole year straight. Okay, but yeah, so back to Code Malo here. So what would you say Code Malo brings to the table, or what are kind of the deciding factors or the cornerstones of Malo?
So it's kind of over the last year and a half. I mean, things I've tried to add. Sorry, my computer's doing something funny.
Oh no, it's fine.
And codename Malo. Codename Malo.
Codename Malo.
Codename Malo.
Gotcha. I've been saying Malo, but Malo.
Oh, sorry, you've been saying Code Malo.
Oh, did I say Code Malo? I'm sorry. Codename. Codename Malo.
That's all right. Codename Malo. So Codename Malo, it's a 4-player versus multiplayer, and it's trying to balance a little bit frantic gameplay and strategic gameplay. Although, from what I've been getting from testers, it takes a lot of hours before you feel like it's strategic. There's 20 different weapons you can get around the levels, and I've really tried to not just have more weapons. Like I don't want to have 10 different guns that do similar gun things. So when you get an item, like I've really tried to make it so it kind of changes how you approach different levels, and they all have their strengths and their weaknesses, and they're all balanced to kind of encourage bumping into each other. So none of them are so good that you couldn't like evade it if you had time to plan a little bit. I've tried to add lots of neat platforming mechanics. So there's levels that the gravity will invert at different times, depending on switches hit, or if you have a power up that lets you kind of control the flow of gravity. There's other levels where there's divides through the screen where on one side of the divide the gravity is one direction, on the other side of the divide the gravity is the other direction, and it leads to all kinds of hilarious couch gaming moments.
It is very funny. Yeah, I've been laughing a lot during the testing. It's been a blast. I definitely recommend it.
Diabolical in the level design.
That's probably a good word for it.
There's 12 planned stages. I've made 11 so far. I'm not letting myself even start the 12th one until I'm done polishing the other ones. But the stages themselves, they're not meant to be like individual stages. They're meant to be like a type of level or type of stage. So when you go into any one of the stages, there's a lot of pseudo-random parts to these levels. So in any given stage, I might have handcrafted 10 versions of that stage. And within each of those 10 versions, there's parts that might flip one way or the other way, depending on how the random number generator is feeling that day. So, for testing sessions, I've spent time like crafting these new levels that I'm excited to play, and sometimes we'll play the game for a couple hours, and you'll only see like 60% of the stages at this point. Mm-hmm. So I think that helps keeps the gameplay fresh, and also just leaves you on I think anyways leaves you when you're playing feeling on edge a little bit, just because the level spawns, it looks familiar, but you don't really know what's going to happen. You always got to be watching out for new little things that might pop out while you're playing. Sure. So the goal is just to have it so every time you play, it feels fresh. It doesn't feel like you're just memorizing level layouts and stuff. You're always going to be on your toes.
I like that. It's very cool.
So yeah, I mean, there's the one stage is meant to be a throwback to that original Marshmallow Duel game. So I've tried to design it to give that same feel. There's one stage where the lightning item that's basically star power for Mario, it spawns just at the very top of the level. So it's kind of a king of the hill where everyone tries to control that section of the map.
Yeah, I like that one. That was a good one. Yeah, a lot of them were very well designed, I would say.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
cool.
Just started trying to roll out online testing that you've been kind enough to be part of, and
absolutely,
that's been a lot of fun. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun collecting feedback from other developers, because they really, they scrutinize things in a different way. That I've gotten a lot of great feedback from that, and I've made some tweaks that I think that'll make the game even better.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you have to know the difference when you're getting feedback from what type of person's giving you the feedback. But yeah, all feedback is valid for sure.
Sure, and if you get feedback from 10 different people and they didn't have a chance to chat about it, you notice patterns where certain things are suggested.
Yeah, yeah. The more the better, for sure. And are you still taking on more testers for your online project?
Yeah, I'm slowly rolling out my testing master plan. And anyone that wants to test, if you shoot me a message on Twitter, and I'll invite you out to our Codename Alley Discord server. Right now, most of the testing is happening through me, through free software called Parsec that lets you play local games only, kind of online with your friends. And it's working pretty well. Even tests across the world, there's a bit of input lag by the time you get like right across the world, but as long as It's not quite that far. It's been pretty smooth. I'm leaning towards coding like an actual kind of client server thing, so where I'm not dependent on Parsec. But for testing, it's been amazing. And anyone that wants in, just again shoot me a message on Twitter, and I'll get you involved.
Cool. And we can find you on Twitter at Ancalabro, right? And that's
Ancalabro, yeah.
Ancalabro, right?
Yes.
Yep. So just follow him on Twitter and find his links on his bio and check it out. And I'd like to play with you too. It'd be fun. Join his Discord. All right. Let's see here. I think this game's going to be successful. I mean, obviously it's hard to say when it's not out, but I think you're going to do great here. What kind of goals do you have after the project finds success? Like, if you make some money from it.
I really appreciate your positive outlook on this.
Absolutely. But what are like the studio goals or your goals as like a business?
I'm still kind of torn on that. To me, I've got 3 or 4 game ideas in the pipeline.
Okay.
They're all in the kind of 2D side-scrolling couch versus world. Also, even looking at Codename Mallow, like the game started as again a throwback to this other game, and so I've had to build the physics and build the world in a way that kind of feels true to that to some degree, and I might have built some of the core mechanics a little bit differently, and might have freed up or allowed for certain other platform mechanics to come into play. So I've even thought about making like a sequel to this game and how I might approach certain things.
So the sky's the limits, and you're sticking with games.
The sky's the limit, and I've had a lot of people come and bug me about releasing the game on Switch, on the Nintendo Switch, because it does seem like that's the platform to go to for indie developers. But also
sure, would be nice, right?
Yeah, but I've programmed it the game in Python and Pygame, which I love working with, but distribution options are a little bit limited there. So I've contemplated releasing this and then kind of scooting over to another game engine and porting it to that engine for console release. And I'd love to do that. And like I said, a massive amount of my time, my dev time over the last year and a half has gone towards making the art assets, because like I said, it's not something that comes easy to me, but also just tinkering with little numbers, trying to get the physics just right and the little mechanics just right. And I really think that port would go quickly, and not having to redo that kind of stuff, and kind of knowing what I'm aiming for right out of the gates instead of testing lots of different things. So
okay, and then so do you kind of have like a release date in mind then? No,
that's a dangerous question.
So because what I'm thinking is that first of all, the Switch Pro is like right around the corner, and that's going to be a whole different process, I'm sure. And then also there's the Alienware UFO. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's a handheld gaming computer, and you can basically run Steam on a Switch. It looks just like a Switch.
It's amazing.
I'm surprised that they don't get sued for patent stuff because it looks just like a Switch.
Nintendo protects the stuff, you never know.
Or maybe they bought the license for the patent to use it. I don't know. But I'm definitely looking forward to see the price on one of these. It's probably going to be pretty high end, but I mean, it looks like it'll probably have Switch kind of specs though, so it won't be able to run, the fastest games.
Yeah.
But
I would love to have this out on PC, Linux, and Mac.
Nice.
Mid to late this year.
Good.
But that's not a promise. That's a goal. And my current plan is to get it out on those platforms, release it on itch, release it on Steam, and then kind of gauge reception. And if people are enjoying it, my next move would be to port it for a Switch release.
Nice. Cool. So how much research did you do before you started this project? Or was it just kind of like, hey, I like this game, I'm going to go for it?
Yeah. This game has been like the living embodiment of feature creep. I had built, I think I posted about it a little while ago on Twitter, but I built a 2D Smash Brothers-esque fighting game 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
Never intended for release. The visuals on it, the background was kind of pixel arty. The ninjas themselves, I actually made models in what's that free modeling software?
I'm not sure.
Blender.
Oh, Blender, right.
Yeah, so I made these 3D models in Blender. I animated them, and then I took images of them and used them as sprites. And the whole thing was just a giant pile of spaghetti code. But I learned a few things on what didn't work and why it didn't work and what to avoid, and tricks for screen resolutions and stuff like that. So I had a starting point. But like I said, this project it sure would be fun to have a 4-player version of that game, that Marshmallow Duel game I had as a kid. So I made a prototype, pretty rough prototype. And at the time, I was having my 2 brothers over for retro styled games nights where we played Duck Game and Towerfall kind of once a month. And they came over to play, and I showed them the prototype. I hadn't bothered rigging it up on my television, so it was just on my laptop. And we spent the whole 3 or 4 hours just bent over the keyboard playing the prototype because they were having so much fun. So that's kind of where it started.
Your brothers are kind of your internal testing unit?
I've got my brothers and my older brother's girlfriend. They come over once in a while, and they've got their 10,000 hours of test hours in. So I feel like you get different feedback from people that have played lots and lots and lots of the game versus people that are just it's both totally valuable in different ways. So, and my
100%.
daughter, my 6-year-old daughter, like puppy tests too.
Yeah, I'm sure you get a whole variety of different types of feedback then.
Yeah.
Cool.
It would be, I think I answered half your question.
Oh, yeah.
The game started as a 1-level remake of this old game. There was four items, and I just kept thinking, there should have been ice in that game, so I added slippery surfaces, and there should be gravity mechanics, and what if they had this item and that item? So it's grown naturally, and I like it. Learning the programming as I'm going too. I had a bit of trouble getting Python programs compiled so they could be distributed.
Sure.
And I tried several times getting a program called PyInstaller to work. I don't actually think it's that complicated. It just is something that I hadn't worked with before, and I couldn't quite get it going. So the minute that I finally got that to work was the minute I decided that I was going to try and pursue releasing this.
Right on. So would you say that was your biggest milestone to this date then?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I said, I tried a few times. I tried using different software to solve that problem, and it just seemed like nothing was working. And the minute it said compiled successful, and that was an exciting moment.
So as far as software that you stand by, like daily, or at least every time you get a chance to dev, we're talking about Pygame and GIMP for the most part?
Pygame and GIMP. That is, yeah.
Is there anything else we're missing out here?
Basic free text editor. And all the coding's done in that.
Cool.
And
wait, what was the name of the text editor?
I want to give a shout out to Asprite because I think it's the way to go. I just don't know how to use it yet. So
go ahead and test it first.
That's on my list.
Nice, nice. No, I stand by Aspray. I think it's great. GIMP is great too, though. I used GIMP for a long time. I've trained people in GIMP, and and GIMP's not too difficult. It's a lot like Photoshop. It's just the keyboard controls are a little bit different. The hotkeys are a little different in GIMP. That's just the hardest part. And it sounds like you don't have Photoshop experience, right? So,
I don't know.
So you don't have to worry about that. But with Aspray, it has that, so it's the same as Photoshop. It just makes it that much easier. But they're both very viable and useful tools. So, yep. Let's see here. So what do we have coming soon in your project in like some type of roadmap in like the next few months, let's say?
Yeah. Uh,
Just a vague guess.
I'd really like to get a demo out. Like, so I've got anyone that wants to come and play the latest build is welcome to come on the Discord server and reach out to me through Twitter and the more eyes on it, the better. The more feedback, the better. But I'd really like to get store pages up for Steam and for Itch with a demo on there. And I can't decide exactly how much content or how many levels to put in the demo, but I think that would be my goal for the next couple months is to get that out there.
I think that's something that testers could definitely provide feedback on too.
Yeah.
Because we might mostly be devs, that are listening or that are in the indie dev world order, obviously, but we're also gamers. I occasionally buy games. Believe it or not.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I only have a bit of experience making doing the online play thing. One of my previous projects, I made a little board game that you could play against someone online.
Nice.
Obviously, turn-based games have way less hoops and challenges than something where you're playing live. But I really think that if I could put online play in the game, it would really help a game like this that's not getting released on a console initially. So I'd like to try and tackle that. And that's probably the last big hurdle, because right now it's just polishing what's there. So.
Yeah, and I can't really speak from experience because I haven't passed that hurdle myself. I've never done a networked multiplayer game, but I do know that it's going to be an uphill battle for you. So yeah. I wish you the most luck that you can get.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll be there to test it when you get it, totally, and to cheer you on the sidelines and stuff. And hopefully I can learn it for one of my future games. So. Because I also continue to I plan to continue making games for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to talk about. Is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to your testers, like, or potential players, like?
But I really appreciate you guys. Everything about this whole experience has been awesome for me. Even like I said, I'm not traditionally someone that has embraced social media, and the community on Twitter and now my friend and Discord a little bit. Everyone's been so overwhelmingly supportive, and not just. Blind support either. Like, people have been great at suggesting things that they think could be better or features that they think would work well. And again, for having no background in game design at all, I've been very grateful for that type of feedback and that type of help. So I just wanted to say that anyone that's taken the time to play the game or that's taken the time to comment on my Twitter posts or whatever, just thanks so much for helping me out. It has made all the difference for me.
Well, that's pretty awesome, and I want to thank you for being so inspirational and motivational and having great gifts, because I mean that's what Twitter's for, right?
Thanks, man. I think so much of that is just I've had a couple people ask me about that, and I feel like I just happen to have picked a game to make that makes good GIFs.
Yeah, it's there's a word for it. It's called GIFability, right? You have a very GIFable game.
Yeah. If anyone wants GIFability, then you should make a game about marshmallow ninjas blowing each other up, because there's lots of opportunities for GIFs.
Yes, that is clippable right there. Great quote. Yeah, that could be on your Twitter header right there.
That would be awesome.
Okay, so do you have any plugs that you want to drop? Any other projects or any organizations like the Indie Dev World Order?
Yeah. If you're a game dev or an indie dev, or someone that's involved in the scene, whether it's a voice actor or a streamer, you really should check out the Indie Dev World Order. Like it's an awesome group. Everyone in there is just doing whatever they can to help each other out, and it's growing. We've got weekly streams kind of promoting people's projects. You were on there last night?
Yep. Last night. It was a great time.
Awesome stream. The whole group's about sharing knowledge, about helping each other out, and about doing what we can to help get eyes on everyone's projects. And we have a lot of neat initiatives that we're trying to do to help everyone kind of accomplish their goals. Like I said, we've got streamers in there that are looking for content for their streams. So there's the opportunity to network and find a streamer to kind of pair up with. Indie game lover. She's got a massive Twitter following, and she's been making weekly content, kind of promoting different projects every week. Lauren and videos. She's doing regular YouTube videos. Actually, I think there's a Retro Spitball, one of those too, isn't there?
Lauren from Antler Studios, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got we're having Indie Dev World Order game jam later in the year, and our end game is to actually have host a Indie Dev World Order conference in Miami in year and a half.
That sounds like so much fun. I wish I could go. I don't think I'm gonna make it, but that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, well,
maybe I'll pull some strings.
Even folks that can't make it, we're planning on things are in the works to organize a live stream of the important parts of the event.
That sounds amazing.
So we just want everyone to be involved. So
yeah. I'm excited for that. Very cool stuff. Very cool.
Check it out.
All right. And so is there any other places that you'd like to be found other than your Twitter, which is at Ancalibro? Like your itch account, or?
Yeah, my itch account is Ancalibro as well, I believe.
Okay, that makes it easy. I do the same thing with my name, Rick Oakland.
It will be www.codenamemallow.com.
Wow.
And I'm hoping to have that up. That will be up within a week.
Nice,
so,
nice. Very cool.
Can I just say that? Are you, because you're not going to have this up in a week, are you?
I don't know. We'll just have to see.
All right. Well, if you go to codenamemallow.com and it isn't there yet, try again a week later.
Yeah, try it. It should work. And if not, search on Itch, right? And search on Twitter and check out the fun GIFs.
Yeah.
And share it, because they're great. If you're trying to get some likes, you'll share some Codename Mallow GIFs.
Appreciate it, man.
Right on. All right. Is there anything else?
I don't think so. You've covered lots of ground.
Yeah, it's a long one here. I want to thank you so much for spending this time. I know time is important when you're a dev and a parent and you have a family and all that. So I just want to thank you a ton for taking this time and interviewing. And
oh man, yeah. I was quite honored to be asked. So it's cool to be part of this.
Awesome. And I'd like to have you either come back in the future or at least keep us updated with your progress reports, and I'll keep everyone informed if you can't make it back.
Yeah, just say the word. I'd love to be back. Just let me know.
Okay, perfect. All right, man. Well, have a great day.
Too.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the first interview on Indie Game Dev Report. I want to thank Encalibro and his awesome project, Codename Malo. I want to thank you for listening. I want you to give me feedback, please. If you've checked out my game, Retro Spaceball, give me feedback on that. If you liked the podcast, give me feedback. If you didn't like it, I'd still like to hear what you wanted to, what you'd like to get out of it, or how it could be improved. You can find me on Twitter very easily. It's RIKOCLON, no space, and rickoakland.com. You can find all my games. I'd love to reach out more to the community, and I'd love to interview more devs. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And have a great day. Thank you so much for listening.